Hello, fellow book readers. My name is John, and today I want to go over every series that I started in 2025 and rank them. So I don't it's not every book from a series that I've read in 2025 because if I started the series in 2024 and read a book of theirs in 2025, I'm not going to talk about that series. So like Emily Wilde, for example, I started in 2024. The last book of that series came out in 2025. But that's not going to be in this list because it wasn't a series that I started in 2025. So it's any series that I started in 2025, even if I only read one of the books in the series, that's it. We're going to talk about it and rank it. So there were 30 series that I started in 2025. The majority of them I did finish, but not all of them. And some of them haven't even finished as series yet. But we're just going to rank them 30 to 1. And it's just going to be a little bit quick overview because if I talked in detail about all these series, this video would be an hour and a half. And I don't want to do that. But for my end of the year goal, I just wanted to talk a little bit about each series that I read. And do keep in mind, I have read 160, now 7 books on the year. So I've read a lot of books. So there were room for 30 different series. So beginning at number 30, that would be The Magicians by Lev Grossman. This is my least favorite series of the year, and really the only one out of the 30 that there is almost nothing positive about for me. I just pretty much hated my time from beginning to end of this series. Actually, I can't even say that because I haven't read book 3. It's a trilogy. I've only read the first 2 books, and really I just had a terrible time. The main character just reminds me of Holden Caulfield from The Catcher in the Rye. I've talked about that a lot in this channel, and I just don't think he is a character that is a good fantasy protagonist. That's really my main problem with the books, but other than that, it was misguided expectations. I thought we were going to have way more education in this book, and we don't. We really learn nothing about the magic while Quentin is in school. And I thought the Portal Fantasy stuff was fine, but still wasn't like very good. Coming in at number 29 is The Pillars of Peace by Tom Dumbrell. This is a 3-book series, but really the first 2 books tell the complete story, and the third book is like a spin-off with another character. I only read the first 2 books, and it wrapped up nicely. The second book was much better than the first. This book just has some issues where the voices feel very inauthentic to me. And this was this author's first published book and second published book, so I do get that he still was like working on his craft, and it's not something he mastered yet. I thought some of the concepts in the story, in the series, were very good, but the execution of those concepts left just a little bit to be desired for me. So this series for me was just okay. The second book was better than the first, but like I said, the voices were just very inauthentic, and that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. Okay, and then at number 28 is the Radiant Emperor series by Shelley Parker Chan. This is She Who Became the Sun and He Who Drowned the World. It's a duology. For me, these books were just okay. They had severe pacing issues, in my opinion. The first book just kept teasing at magic that we never got to see because the magic didn't come into the story really until the second book, and that was very frustrating. And then the second book introduced another point of view character, and the book was just way too long, and I don't think the point of view character that they added was very interesting. So yeah, the severe pacing issues of this book series really dragged it down for me, even though there were parts of it that I really enjoyed. I thought the climaxes of both books were spot on, but again, these books were just okay because they had some severe pacing issues. Okay. It's funny that I mentioned pacing issues in number 28, and now we're getting to the king of pacing issues, or perhaps I should say the queen. That is the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb. Yeah, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, and I understand that. Look, there was a lot I liked about this series. I thought the antagonist was very good, even though he was an over-the-top Saturday morning cartoons villain. I thought some of the character work was superb. But frankly, I just didn't connect with Fitz, the main character. And Robin Hobb has this very slow, methodical way she writes. It's very intentional, so keep that in mind. It's not like she is writing slowly, accidentally. It's very, very intentional, and people love that. But for me, that type of writing just doesn't usually work. And here it was a glaring weakness. These books were not paced well at all, in my opinion, even though they're going to be paced well for some people. For me, I just didn't jive with the way these books were paced, and even though I enjoyed some parts of these books, the enjoyment to amount of time it takes to read them just isn't worth it for me. So that's why it ends up at number 27. And I probably will not be continuing the Realm of the Elden Ring series. Okay, at number 26 is Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. I've only read the first book in this series. It was just okay. Again, I talked about this in my last video. I thought that she built to this fantastic climax. Like, the way she built to this climax was unexpected for me. I did not... I went into this book with no expectations. Just because I wasn't the target audience. So I was pleasantly surprised by the way she built to the climax, only to have the rug taken out from under me. The main character, she just passes out and she wakes up and the fight's over. And you don't even get to see what happened. It's just so frustrating. It felt like she was afraid to write that action scene, so she just found a way around writing it. And the way she built to it was so good, so fabulous. I just wish we got to see it. The romance, it's whatever. It's fine. And I thought some of the world building was pretty good, but I can't get over the climax and some of the teen drama. Again, I wasn't the target audience for. So for me, this is just an okay book series. I probably will read the second one next fall, though. Okay, next up is the Crowns of Ishia series by Karen Loichi. This is a trilogy of novellas that's pure epic fantasy. What I love about this series is that it is novellas. These are short reads. I think fantasy needs more novellas. I think it's ripe for the novella game. I understand you can't world build as much in a novella. It's limited pages, but I think you can get really creative. And there's a lot of good fantasy novellas out there. And I just wish there was more. I wish we got a little bit more of that novella game. But because right now novellas and fantasy are mainly used for prequels or like spin-offs. And I wish we just got some series where they were all novellas, like this one. And this is a dragon fantasy, and that's really cool. And I think the world that takes place in is very interesting. But it's not all positives. Like I said about the novellas in the beginning, she just tries to shove so much in this book that it almost takes away from the plot at times. Now, I've only read the first one. I am definitely going to continue it, but I've only read the first one so far. And there were a lot of positives about it, just like a lot of negatives, because she almost had it almost felt like she had world builders disease in this, where she just tried to world build so much and describe all the cultures, and there just wasn't enough pages for the story to sort of relax and flow. That's my only negative about this. Okay, and number 24 is the War Eternal series by Rob J. Hayes. This is his 5-book series of grimdark fantasy, and yes, it is very grimdark. The protagonist is not super likable. They're all gray characters. The first book takes place in this prison, and it's just very daunting, and the setting sort of dragged that book down for me. It just felt like too much. But the second and third book, when our main character is outside of the prison, has some really fabulous world building in it, and it is just a marked improvement. And it's very grimdark. Like, anybody could die. All the characters are mostly gray. But I really like the lore and the world building and the gods and the action. It was all well done, but it did feel just grating at times with how dark it was almost, I want to say. So yeah, this series was just fine for me, even though there were parts of books 2, 3 that I loved. Even book 1 was okay, but yeah, I don't know. I say that you can read the first 3 books and it tells a complete story. Books 4 and 5 have the same characters in them, but it's in the future. So it's really a trilogy plus a duology, but it all sort of comes together at the end. But yeah, it was fine. Okay, and number 23 is His Dark Materials by Phil Pullman. This is the sort of children's / young adult classic fantasy from the 90s. Yeah, the series was good, and that's what I'll say about it. It's good without being great. I just thought he did some really weird things in this that kind of dragged it down for me. Why is this happening? Some of the decisions he makes feel way out of left field. And I don't think he writes woman very well, personally. But other than that, I had a pretty good time with this series. Some of the side characters were just a blast. I thought the protagonist was a very easy to root for protagonist. I thought the world building was just very interesting. It does get a bit sci-fi-y at times, it felt like, but it's not a problem. It's mostly just a classic epic fantasy, and it's really a young adult fantasy. It's one of those young adult fantasies that you can get like into the fantasy genre with. It's a great winter read too. Okay, next up at number 22 is the Dragon Riders of Pern series by Anne McCaffrey. I've read the first two books, Dragon Flight and Dragon Quest. Yeah, what I liked about this series was you can tell how it inspired modern fantasy so much. From the dragons and the dragon people connection to just the world. I still claim that the Weir is the inspiration for George R.R. Martin's Night's Watch. They have so many similarities that it is mind-boggling. Just a really, really great inspiration for a lot of fantasy. The cons, it hasn't aged well. Yeah, just her writing, the theming, and some of the other stuff feels a little bit ancient and problematic's not the right word, but outdated. And that's a shame because some of the other stuff about this series has been really good. I think I will read White Dragon sometime in 2026, but I'm not sure that I'll continue past White Dragon. Okay, number 21 is the Stolen Air duology by Holly Black. This is her follow-up to the Folk of the Air trilogy. Yeah, it was a blast to be back in this world. Just had a really nice time, but I can say that this is a kind of a bit of a downgrade in terms of just plot and characters from the Folk of the Air trilogy. That being said, the world is still the same fabulous world. If you don't like Holly Black world building, I don't know what's wrong with you. She's just a really fabulous world builder, and that shows in this duology still. And I think this duology wrapped up in a really nice way with some like great cameos from the Folk of the Air characters. Okay, and at number 20 is the Surwa Boateng series by Roseanne A. Brown. This is published under the Rick Riordan Presents imprint of his publisher. And it reads very much like a Rick Riordan Percy Jackson book. Except instead of Greek mythology, we get Western African mythology. And that's really interesting to me because I didn't know that much about Western African mythology. So I got to learn a little bit about Western African mythology while getting the same sort of fun storytelling you get from the Rick Riordan series. With all the same action, all the same kinds of humor, all the same lovable protagonists. Yeah, this was just a blast. It's not higher because I've only read the first book in the series so far. I have a feeling if I read the trilogy, it would be placed a little bit higher on this list. But yeah, I just had a really good time with this. Thought everything was done well. It's paced well. It is a middle grade fantasy, so do keep that in mind. It is for children, but I don't think fantasy has an age limit. I think you can read any subgenre of fantasy and find enjoyment of it if you try hard enough. Okay, at number 19 is the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I read all 7 Chronicles of Narnia books this year, and it's a mixed bag. Some of the series is just great and classic, and some of the series I just don't think is very good, particularly The Last Battle. I think The Horse and His Boy and The Silver Chair are just like, whatever, they're fine. But stuff like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, that book is a classic, and it will always be a classic. It's a great, great children's fantasy novel. Even things like The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, with that emotional ending, is so good. The Magician's Nephew, so good. So it is a bit of a mixed bag, which is why it places at 19, but the highs of this are really high. Has it aged great? No, not as good as some of the other series on this list, but it's definitely worth reading if you're into fantasy and haven't read it yet. Okay, number 18 is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. I have read The Color of Magic, Carpe Jugulum, and The Hogfather. I didn't enjoy The Color of Magic that much, but Carpe Jugulum and The Hogfather were both very good. And this is the series that I could see rising higher in my rankings next year. Because I after The Color of Magic, I had negative expectations about this series. I was like, I'm just not going to like any other Terry Pratchett book. Because I didn't like Good Omens either. But then I read Carpe Jugulum and The Hogfather, and I was so pleasantly surprised. And I hope there's just more like that. The world here is just so colorful and animated, and the character work here is just superb, and the humor, it's hit or miss for me, but the stuff that it hits on is really good, and I just want to dive into more of this series in 2026, especially and particularly the Death series. I want to read the entire sub-series of this world titled Death with the character of the Death, because I think he's the most interesting and fun character in the series so far that I've met. So I look forward to knocking out that sub-series in 2026, and I could see this series rising higher on my list. Okay, number 17 is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I'm so glad I read an R.F. Kuang book or even series this year because she really is just a fantastic author who has like a lot of creative world-building ideas, and she writes really good action and really great, morally great characters. And I really loved The Poppy War, and I loved The Dragon Republic. Dragon Republic, one of my favorite books I read this year. I just don't think she nailed the end of the series. The Burning God felt a lot like Rise of Skywalker to me, and that it felt like just like bad fan fiction in a lot of places, even though there were some parts of the book I liked. But it just, overall, I didn't enjoy my time in The Burning God, which is why it's a little bit lower on this list. Now, 17 is not low for me at all, because I did enjoy this series quite a bit, and it has one of my favorite books of the year. So keep that in mind. The series is a little bit unbalanced, but the first two books are far and away worth reading, and I think everybody should try an R.F. Kuang book or series at some point. Okay, next up is The Crowns of Nyaxia by Carissa Broadbent. I read the first two books in the series, and the series is set into like 3 different duologies, so I read the first duology, and it was really fun. It was like a vampire Hunger Games book, the first book, and then the second book was like this sort of war between these 2 different vampire clans. It was very epic fantasy-like, but it was also a romantasy. No doubt that it's a romantasy with some epic fantasy elements to it. I really enjoyed my time here. Just a very good book series so far, and I will probably read the second duology next year. Okay, number 15 for me is ACOTAR. Yep, The Accord of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas series comes in at number 15. For me, this is her weakest series of her 3 series, but it's still very good. Like, I had a very good time reading the series for the most part. I just think Sarah J. Maas does character work as good as anyone does character work in the fantasy genre. I just love the way she writes her characters. I do think the plot here is not as interesting as it could be, and some of the books fail in different ways. Like, I think Wings and Ruin fails sort of in the climax area. I think Mist and Fury sort of fails in the plot area, but does like an over-the-top great job with just like the slice of life of the characters. And I think A Court of Silver Flames is just probably the best plotted book of the series, but she just went like overboard with the spice. Like, there's just way too much spice in that. So yeah, there's some things wrong with each book, but for me, each book is mostly very good. So yeah, it's coming in at number 15, and I'm happy I read it. Okay, sticking on the romantasy subgenre lane, at number 14 is The Bridge Kingdom by Daniel L. Jensen. Oh, this book series was just fun. I thought every single book in the series was exactly the same, and that they were all just really, really fun. And the amount of world building that's in this was like so surprising to me. Like, the world building here was genuinely very good. I really enjoyed it, and I thought the character work here was very good too. And I look forward to reading book 6 in 2026. It's one of my most anticipated books coming out in 2026. So I have nothing negative to say about this. If you're looking for like a masterful, like epic fantasy, yeah, this probably isn't gonna be what you want, but it is very fun. It's like a popcorn flick. It's just a very fun series. These books are very good. Yeah. Okay, at number 13 is The Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. If I was ever going to recommend a King Arthur series to somebody, it would be this one. It's dark, it's gritty, it's very George R.R. Martin-esque in a way. I will say that the first book has some like real pacing issues for me, which is why I don't enjoy the first book that much, or at least like 80% of the first book. I thought the last 20% is fabulous, but books 2 and 3 are just spot on. They're so good, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like this, if you're looking for a King Arthur series, read this one. That would be my recommendation. And number 12 is The King of Scars duology by Leigh Bardugo. This is her final duology in the Grishaverse, at least as of now. I really enjoyed this duology. Rule of Wolves, one of my favorite books of the year. I love that book. I thought it had everything you wanted, from the action to the character work to the ending. I am so happy with it that I hope she doesn't write another Grishaverse book, because I just thought it was the perfect ending to the Grishaverse. So yeah, that's what I have to say about this. Is King of Scars like a pure setup book and has some issues a little bit? It's still very good though. Do keep that in mind. But yeah, really enjoyed this series. Okay, at number 11 is the most surprising series on the list for me. Didn't really expect it to place this high. That would be the Earthsea Cycle series by Ursula K. Le Guin. It is a bit of a mixed bag. I did not like The Farthest Shore at all, and I thought Wizard of Earthsea had some real issues. But the other 4 books in this series are all so great. Tombs of Atuin, my most surprising book of the year. That book's near perfect. I love that book. When Ursula K. Le Guin is writing about the sexes and sexism and feminism and discrimination, when she's touching on those powerful themes, she is such a mind-blowingly great author. Like, she is so good at writing that. And she does a lot of that in the Earthsea Cycle series. And it also has dragons and an archipelago and different cultures. What is not to like about this series? And people are going to say it's a children's series. It really isn't. You can classify it as young adult if you want. To me, it has elements of adult, young adult, children in it. It's for everybody. It's so good. Read it if you haven't read it. That is my recommendation. Okay, number 10 is probably the most beautiful prose that I've read from a modern author this year, and that is The Inheritance Trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. I just loved the writing in this series so much. I loved the world building in this series so much. I loved most of the characters in this series so much. So why isn't it higher? Not that 10 is low, 10 is very high. I thought the third book left a lot to be desired. I did not like the third book that much. I loved the end of the third book, but getting there was a bit of a chore because of the point of view character that we're in. But the first 2 books are just near perfection. They're so great. 100,000 Kingdoms needs to be talked about more in the fantasy genre, like especially on BookTube. That book is great. And people talk about the Broken Earth series from N.K. Jemisin. My understanding is that isn't really epic fantasy, but this is. If you're looking for an epic fantasy series from N.K. Jemisin, pick this up. The Inheritance Trilogy is where it's at, and pick up the bundle like that has all 3 books in one, because it comes with a bonus novella, The Awakened Kingdom, which is one of my favorite fantasy novellas I've ever read. Okay, number 9 is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. Now, this is the book series that just started this year. Only the first book's out. It's going to be a duology. I think book 2 is either coming out in 2026 or 2027. Not 100% sure. But I was blown away by this first book. I shouldn't say I was blown away. I wasn't blown away. I expected it to be perfect, and guess what? It was perfect. This book was awesome. Rachel Gillig continues to deliver every time she writes a book for me. One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns were amazing. The Night and the Moth, amazing. It's like One Dark Window, but with a bit more romance. That's how I would describe it. One Dark Window, Two Twisted Crowns for me are really just like epic fantasy with romance. I would call The Night and the Moth a romantasy. But she writes settings as good as anybody. She writes great magic systems, and she has really fabulous character work. So I can't recommend it enough. Just awesome series. And number 8 is the Bloodsworn Saga by John Gwynne. I love this series. I went in with sort of expectations, because when I read fantasy, I don't love like super detailed, we're going to take forever to write action scenes action. I read epic fantasy for the character work and the prose and like the plot, not so much the action. And this series has great character work and great prose and great plot work, but it also just has really great action that I did not feel dragged at all, even though it took forever. This book series showed me that you could write really long action pieces that are very detailed, and it doesn't necessarily mean your book is going to drag or have bad pacing, because this book series didn't. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Bloodsworn Saga. I love so much about it. Hunger of the Gods was just fabulous. So was Fury of the Gods. Shadow of the Gods, I had a blast with, but it wasn't as good as the last 2 books in my opinion. Okay, number 7 is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I read both of those books this year, Six Crows and Crooked Kingdom, and I do think it is the best series in the Grishaverse of the 3. Just really fantastic high story in book 1. Book 2 also has a fantastic high story, and just like a great ending and some really great character work. Crooked Kingdom is one of my favorite books I read of the year. There's just not much else to say about this series. It's awesome. The magic's awesome. The characters are awesome. The plot work is intricate but really good. And there's some really great surprises and twists along the way. So yeah, and it ends in a very satisfying way. So sad but satisfying. Okay, at number 6 is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. This was my introduction to urban fantasy, or at least like modern urban fantasy. And yeah, it was good. It was great. I really enjoyed my time here. I don't really have anything too negative to say. I do think some of the books were just like a little bit too long, but other than that, like the character work here is Sarah J. Maas character work, so it's amazing. The plot work here is really good. The magic system is interesting, but what's even better about all that is this really sets up sort of the multiverse in the SJM universe like really well. Like the world building here is fantastic. It's definitely her best world building in my opinion. So I really smiled getting to read that because I really love the world building in Throne of Glass a lot, and the actual world building is even fine. But the world building here, connecting it all, is just so good, and I really, really, really like that about this series. So yeah, I had a smile on my face while I read all 3 of these books. I thought the first book had one of the best climaxes I've ever read. My favorite climax of the year, just superbly done. Okay, we're getting into the top 5 now. Top 5 is great. It's just a great top 5. So at number 5 is Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I read all 3 Empire of the Vampire books this year, and just far and away like the best of vampire fantasy you can find. It's vampires, there's war, there's morally gray characters, there's inspiration pulled from all these other vampire stories like Interview with a Vampire and Carmilla and Dracula. Just as much inspiration as you can find is poured into this, but it's also just epic fantasy and it feels like Game of Thrones but with vampires. It's so good, and I love the last book in the series, Empire of the Dawn. 5-star read for me. It's perfect. I have a review in this channel. I'll link it down below. Just such a great book, and I can't say anything more about it. Like I loved it. These characters will stick with me for a long time. Okay, at number 4 is The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski. This was originally going to be 3. If I did this video 2 weeks ago, this would have been 3. But yeah, the series is so great. It doesn't have any 5-star books, so why is it at number 4? Because the work in the great books, there's so many like 4-star books for me that I just had to rank it this high. I love the characters. Ciri, one of my favorite characters I read this year. Just an awesome character. Geralt, awesome. This story has versatility to it. The first 2 books are sort of these short stories. They're all mostly about monster hunting. And I love short stories. I'm a short story person. These short story collections were some of the best short story collections I've ever read, especially The Last Wish. Last short story collection hit hard. And then you get the novels after that. And the novels go through so many different phases. And they're epic in scope, but not really. Like, the story isn't about the epic fantasy that's going on around it. It's more like literary fiction, but with epic fantasy there. And it's just a really great... Andre does like a really great job with it. I loved this series. Lady of the Wake, the last book in the series, is a bit too weird for me. I will say that much. I really didn't want King Arthur characters in my Witcher series, so that book's a bit weird for me. I still think he landed the plane really well. Like, the final part of that was really good and really well done. But yeah, that book's a little strange. But every other book I enjoyed immensely. And Tower of the Swallow, Time of Contempt, Last Wish, they're 3 of my favorite books I read this year. I loved all 3 of those books. Just classic stuff. And I'm going to read more Witcher books in the future as they come out. I know the new one just got translated to English. I'm going to read that next year for sure. Like, 100% will be reading it. Just really good stuff, and I really appreciate the Witcher verse. And this is coming from somebody who's never played the video games and has never watched the show. So this is my introduction to The Witcher, and I wouldn't change that at all. I love these books. At number 3 is a recent read, The Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. This series gets hyped so much on BookTube. So I went into it with sky-high expectations, and I will say the first 50% of Jade City, I was like, this is very good, but is it an all-time favorite? No. And then Fonda Lee did something crazy that I just didn't expect at all, and the only thing I could compare it to is the Game of Thrones. What happens? And yeah, just awesome stuff. And from there on, that book series just kept getting better and better and better and better. Jade Legacy, one of my favorite books, not of this year, of all time. I love that book. The way that book takes place over a 20-year period somehow, but it feels seamless throughout. And the way she landed the plane and every single character arc hit, oh, so good. Jade War, fantastic book with so many fake outs and twists and turns, and my mind was blown when I read that book. Jade City, just the last half of that book is a rush of greatness. Just great page after great page. This is urban fantasy as urban fantasy should be. It's fantastic. It's spectacular. I don't know what else to say. I loved it. Loved it. I think it would make an excellent television show. I don't know how it isn't a television show already. Get this on TV. This could be great. Who knew that Kung Fu meets The Godfather meets epic fantasy would work? And it's a crazy combo, and somehow it works beyond amazing. Okay, number 2. I call this the epic fantasy series of the 2010s and the 2020s. That would be the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. I read all 5 books this year. Does it dip down at the end? Yes. I did not enjoy Wind and Truth as much as some people did. I still think it's a good book, but I do think the overall opinion on it is one of the worst books in the series. I do think it's my least favorite. But the first 4 books, that they hit so hard. It reminds me a lot of Wheel of Time. That's just as much epic fantasy as you can pack into a series as possible. Everything from the hard magic system to the swords to the magic to the fighting to the world building to the politics. So good. So worth reading. Am I concerned about where the series is going in the future? A tiny bit. Just a tiny bit by the way book 5 ended. But I can't doubt what Brandon Sanderson has in mind. I feel like he's still going to pull off whatever he wants to do in the second arc. And yeah, like I said, this series is just as much epic fantasy as you can pack into a book as series as possible. And how can me, somebody who loves to read epic fantasy, hate that? I don't. I loved it. It's so good. Words of Radiance, one of the best fantasy books ever written. Shallan, one of my favorite fantasy characters ever written. So how can something get better than the most epic fantasy as possible packed into a book? I'll tell you how. By the book series that it got a lot of its inspiration from. And number 1 is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. This series is the epic fantasy series of the 90s and the 2000s. It's just as much epic fantasy as you can pack into a series as possible. That's what it is. It hits all the check marks of classic epic fantasy, and it does it in a way that is easy to read, but also just like great. I know that sounds weird, but it's just great. The character work here is awesome. It has my favorite Chosen One character of all time. I think Rand is the best Chosen One character in literature, not counting movies or television, just literature. I think Rand al'Thor is the best Chosen One character ever written. I think Egwene is one of the best fantasy characters ever written, just period. She's my favorite in the series. She's awesome. But the cast of characters goes beyond just those 2. Matt, he's a fan favorite. Obviously an all-time great character. Perrin, awesome character arc. Elaine, I think she fits the princess archetype to a T. Like, she's so good at it. Nynaeve, great character. Moiraine, kind of an original mentor character. She's more flawed than, say, like Gandalf or Dumbledore is, but it still works somehow. Like, she's just a great mentor character. Yeah, I love this series so much. And it does it all without having, like, this big bad antagonist that we get to meet. The antagonist is kind of like Sauron, where we don't really know anything about him even by the end of the book series. But it doesn't matter because there's all these other minor or second tier antagonists that are so great, and the world here is so big and expansive, and the politics here are amazing. Yeah, and the magic system, it's my favorite magic system of all time. It's not a soft magic system nor a hard magic system. It's sort of like hits that comfort level in the middle in a way that's perfect. Yeah, just love this series. Can't speak up enough about it. I'm glad I read all 15 books this year. It's an undertaking that I would not advise for other people, but for me, it worked, and yeah, I'm just super happy about it. So those are the 30 fantasy series that I started in 2025. And as you can see, there was a lot of heavy hitters here, some not so heavy hitters, but most of them delivered for me. Even stuff in the 20s that I really enjoyed. So, yeah, it was just a great year of reading, and I loved it. as always, thanks for watching. I will be putting out one more video this week. I think I'm going to review J.R.R. Tolkien's Letters from Father Christmas. I think I'll be putting that out on Christmas Eve. So keep that in mind. And as always, let me know down below what you think about the series I've read, what series you started in 2025. I want to know it all.